the one.
Let's roll. We got 30 plus people waiting in the chat room.
Yeah. All right, I'm hitting the live. Boom, boom, boom. We are effing live. The Shit Show, episode 4. Are we already on episode 4? Is that I believe? We are on
episode 4.
So everybody, welcome to the Shit Show. I'm your host, Johnny Hopper. I've got the one and only Cooksey. We've got the mad scientist, Coach Robb. We've got a host of another podcast, Two Wheel Rider. I've got all the links in the description, Mario. And then we've got a new 450 entry, Todd Bannister. He goes by Toddy B. How you guys doing?
Doing good, man. Thanks for having us.
Heck yeah. Well, to start off the show, right, because we always want to start off the show with a banger. Let's talk about the futures, where you got little kids that are supposed to be amateurs, but they're running factory stuff, and then they're now going pro and East Coast this weekend. So, Cooksey, I know you have a lot to say. What do you have to say about little Hayden Deegan going from a 5th place in the futures to racing under the star tent?
It's not going to go well. This is a dumb idea. Whoever decided that Hayden Deegan should go pro this week doesn't understand how to develop talent. Just look at Max Volan. It doesn't work real well when you just toss these guys in. Yes, the kid's talented. Yes, he's going to be a good pro. He's not going to be Jet Lawrence. He's not going to be Ricky Carmichael. He's going to be Mike Alessi. And people get mad at me when I say that. Mike Alessi was a good pro. Mike Alessi almost won championships. Mike Alessi was fast. And he had a long career. That's not a bad comparison. But the way that his dad is in the pits with a line just soaking this thing and coattailing his kid. And it's crazy to say that a guy with Brian's reputation is coattailing his kid, but he's Tony Alessi on steroids. It's ridiculous, man. Hold the kid back. This is stupid.
Coach, what are you thinking about the whole futures and Deegan turning pro here after a 5th place finish last weekend?
Well, I'm on the opposite side of the fence of Chris, but for reasons that people aren't really going to be thinking about. The difference between Max and with what Deegan's been doing is Deegan has been in a fortunate situation where he has been on Supercross since he was on 85s. I don't think Max got that same opportunity. I do find it a tad bit humorous because we were told that there was no way in heck that Deegan was going to be racing pro in 23. And here we are. So what do I say? Hopper and Cooksey were right yet for the 13th time. So yeah, I think he's going to do quite well. I think he'll finish in the top 10 quite easily, only because the equipment he's on, look at where he's riding, look at who he's been riding with. He essentially has been doing a pro Supercross race every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday at the goat farm. And let's face it, he's got to ride with guys that we don't normally get the chance to do. He's got an entire entourage of people. If the slightest thing goes wrong, they're adjusting everything. And I think he's going to be a force to be reckoned with. I do agree with Chris. I don't see him up there banging bars with Jet. I don't have him in the top 5, actually. I've got him in around the 6 through 8 type of place, depending on his start. But I think he's ready. Kind of, like I said, I think the world of Chris, but I think what Deegan has done, what Brian has done, is really set Hayden to be ready for this debut.
Mario, do you think there's too much hype around little Deegan? Do you think he's prepared for going pro? Or do you think it's going to be one of these scenarios where they're like, this is just a work up season. You're not trying to win races. But I feel like anything under a top 5 for him is kind of a loss.
First off, I just want to say I was supposed to be in Texas this weekend and my trip got canceled. So I'm a little bummed because I was going to attend the Houston round. And I think from a fan perspective, I'm looking forward to it. Like you're throwing a big name in, and it's not just a big Supercross name. It's a big name, kind of across the whole social media platform. So I think it'll be interesting to see the ratings this weekend. If we do see a spike because we've got a really popular person racing, is he ready? I don't know. I mean, I saw last weekend from a rider. I'm not going to touch on the rider perspective of it, but from a I don't think the bright lights are going to do anything. I mean, this guy's used to having a camera in his face since he could walk. He's used to having people around him. He's used to kind of being the center of attention. So I think it'll be interesting to watch this weekend. I'm kind of with Coach. I think probably a top 10's doable. Now, if this was a East-West showdown, no, but we've seen, there's quite a few riders that we were expecting to see line up for this first round of East Coast action that aren't lining up. So it's a little bit easier, I would think, to get in the top 10. And I would kind of expect to see him in there, but I would be floored if he's standing on the podium at the end of Saturday night.
Toddy, so do you feel that you would have rather raced 250 East? Because now you're racing 450 because you were racing 250 West. Do you feel like you might have had a better shot with the East riders, or are you happy with racing West?
I mean, no matter what you pick, it's going to feel like the wrong pick, I think, sometimes, especially if you're having kind of like a rough start to the season. But it's so stacked all around this year. I don't think there's really a right or wrong choice. I'm more happy to just be on a 450, I think, more than anything. So it's crazy. This year in 450 is insane. But East and West, I mean, East has always a little bit more of the newcomers a lot of the time, I've noticed. And so it's a little more hectic, I think, because some of the kids kind of like it's right in between, because some of them think they have a lot to prove right away, which I think for most of them, this should be a learning year. But you just see a little bit more hecticness in qualifying, I think. And that's the one thing nice about being a 450, where everyone's pretty mellow because they've already started the season and there's no like gung-ho young kids. There's a few on West Coast, but not like East Coast.
You make a good point with this kind of being A1 for East Coast. Everybody's got their panties in a twist and they're ready to just go WFO. Okay, since I asked everyone else, there's a lot of hype around Little Deegan. He's got a lot of followers. Prediction, Todd. I'm looking for a prediction. What do you think he's going to do? Crash or win or finish? What is it?
It's hard to say. I'm right in the middle of him, like of everybody on that. Like, I think it's great for our sport. He's coming in. He's so good for the sport, and he's an amazing rider. But the thing is, he's young and he's naive. I'm sorry that I truly feel that way. I watched him last weekend. I watched him in a lot of places. I'm worried that he's going to not be in front and he's going to push really hard because everyone's telling him, you need to be winning and all this stuff, and he's going to make a mistake and crash. I don't want that. I want him to have I think he's going to be successful in the long run, but I really, really think it's kind of like the AC thing where you put all everyone puts their eggs in one basket and there's so much pressure on this kid. He's a kid, so I see him kind of folding up shop a little bit. I think it is a little soon. I think they should have waited a little bit personally, but you know what? They know more about it than me. So I think he's going to do good, though. If he keeps it together and doesn't stress about trying to like podium or something like that, I think he's an easy top 5, top 7 guy. Just from everyone that's talking, talking to Duffy and all those guys in his corner at the test track, dude, he's riding so good. Like, it's insane, I guess. And which is great. But like I said, the one thing is, it's such a different thing from race day to practice day. No matter how you look at it, there's different types of pressure. And I don't know if he can handle it yet. I know he can handle pressure, but it's a different kind. So we'll see, though. It's going to be interesting.
Agree. I don't know. I talked a lot about this week as far as you've got a rider that, yeah, he crashed, but he wasn't the fastest in the futures. And then he ended up finishing 5th, and now he's going pro. As a biased person that never made it in the sport, I sort of feel like there's just a clouded line drawn in the sand when it comes to amateurs and professionals, where we have just B riders turning pro and then being really good. And then you've got novice riders that could be pro, but they're sandbagging. And I kind of feel that the futures are breeding more sandbagging, because now you've got a couple of the riders. What were we talking about, Cooksey? You've got Talon Hawkins coming up as well. These guys were just racing futures last week, and now they're on factory teams. And regardless if this was their amateur bike or their pro bike, I don't know. It's a funny stigma that I think really needs to change in the sport, to where let amateurs be amateurs and then you get the good spot in the 250 class. The 250 class should be the stepping stone class. It should be the college ball, the arena cross, the Supercross, if I'm going to say something or compare anything. I mean, Coach, what do you think? You work with a lot of amateurs.
Well, this is such a unique situation because of the grooming that he's had, since he was on 65s. And I never have a problem with somebody growing up in a wealthy environment. I mean, it's nothing new. It's definitely frustrating for somebody that has, been a privateer their entire life and has to work a job and trying to balance and scrape budgets together and stuff like that. But, hats off to Brian Deegan. He saw it from a very young age. Some people like it, some don't. The thing that I do think is impressive is he's done it with both his son and his daughter, and they both have excelled under pressure. You put his daughter out there on a NASCAR track, and now she's going and racing NASCAR this year. So I think that environment of cultivating success, I say this with my clients all the time, get comfortable being uncomfortable until being uncomfortable becomes your new norm, because that's where a leader is always going to find themselves. Until you start leading enough races, like look at Jet. Jet's a perfect example. Until he consistently stayed out front, he didn't believe he could be there. Now he believes he can be there. And I think the rest is pretty straightforward. My point with Jet is look at Des Nations. He went to Des Nations and he performed extremely well on a big bike on, in my opinion, one of the premier platforms. So I think Deegan is a completely unique animal. You can't compare him to just about anybody else that's come through the ranks. I think it's a completely different, even to a Ryder D or some of these guys that came on the Team Green program. We haven't seen them kind of catapult to that next level. And I think that's more associated with injuries, to Chris's point earlier, where they're forced through the system so quickly. And by the time they get to the tip of the spear and should be going pro in a premium, form, I guess you could say, they're already beaten and battered and cracked, where Deegan has had, what do you have? I think he had one arm injury his entire last 2 years as an amateur. I mean, it's very insignificant in the bigger scheme of things. So if you're looking at downtime associated with injury or illness, Deegan is probably the best thing that's come out from an entire package standpoint. I do agree. We'll see if he can handle this type of pressure. I was kind of interested, if you look at the parallel between Deegan's race last weekend, Jet and Eli, we saw two uncharacteristic get-offs by Eli and Jet both, and ironically in the exact same corner that Hayden went down. So if you really stop and think about it, last weekend, nobody was faster than Hayden Deegan. Qualifying's qualifying, but we know Cooper Webb's not a great qualifier and always does well in the main events. The only person that beat Deegan was himself. The only person that beat Jet was himself. Not one person caught and passed Jet. Not one person caught and passed Tomac, but they both went down and they lost their race. So I don't know. I think you've got a lot of parallels between those three in regards to the pressure and the outcome of the race. But, like Todd said, it'll be very interesting to see. This is a level of pressure that, let's face it, he's never been here before. I always say this, and don't take this in a sexual way, but when was the last time you did something for the first time? And this is what's about to be Deegan's first. As a legitimate professional, his first big Supercross race, here it is.
Coach, the pressure that they've put on him is more than anybody ever. Like, nobody's had this kind of pressure coming in, not even James Stewart. I mean, well, maybe James because he had the race barrier.
No, I agree. But he's been doing it since he was in diapers. He's always been at the tip of the spear.
I'll tell you
what. He's
what.
always had a camera in front of him and kind of being fed what to potentially say. Like he's probably built to do this. Jeremy Brooks in the chat says that, hey, this might be more about money and marketing than if the kid is ready. Like, Mario, do you think it might be more about marketing for a little dude because he's got such a big name?
Yeah, I mean, if you take a look at it right now, I mean, obviously, Star Yamaha's got some big names. You got Eli Tomac, Ferrand. I don't think nothing against Ferrandis. I don't know that Ferrandis is selling a lot of motorcycles here in the United States, but if you look down at their 250 team that has been stacked with stars, they don't have that right now. I mean, I know Levi just won this past weekend. That's cool, but they've got a really, really young team with no star power right now. And now you're going to throw this guy out here. I mean, you look at years past, you've had so many guys come up through, and I know, we'll probably discuss this. You got Cooper's going to be on a 450, I think, this weekend, but they just don't have that star power in the 250 class right now. And I don't know how this futures things works. Like,
They're
I'm
having a hard time keeping up with the club bikes.
Yeah. Like, I'm surprised you can show up, race 1 futures, finish 5th, and go pro the next weekend. Good for him. But no, I think, hopefully he's ready. But Yamaha's ready to get him out there and start moving bikes. And I'm sure Feld is super excited that they're going to be selling more tickets, and there's going to be more eyes on streaming this weekend.
Well, and I think they're jumping the gun. Like, he's not quite ready. He's like a mutual fund that hasn't quite matured yet. Just give it a little bit. Like the whoops coach, if you saw him in the whoops in all the sessions, he was frightened at those whoops. He was jumping almost immediately, where the other kids were still sending it. Yeah. That's where I get the Alessi comparison. He's not ready for sketchy whoops that are torn down that he hasn't seen 100 times over.
No, your point's well taken. You're talking more on the physical side of being on the bike versus the ability to handle the pressure. And I do agree with you 100%. I think pressure wise, he'll be fine. Now, is he going to get mocked if he doesn't blitz the whoops and jumps them like, Webb was doing or whatever? I hope not, because to your point, he doesn't have height working for him. I know Johnny talks and teases himself a lot about that, but, I do agree with you, Chris, on your points. I just want to make sure, for the sake of the listeners, they understand all I'm differentiating is the ability to handle the pressure. I think he's used to it. He's impressed me beyond belief. Even, I know we can't really put Loretta's in Supercross on the same, but if you kept all variables constant, coming into Loretta's with, the biggest bullseye on your back, that's a pressure cooker. And he has smashed it every year he's gone there. He doesn't crack under pressure.
Todd, what were you going to say? I know you were being polite and you didn't want to interrupt.
No, you're good. You're good. No, so I will say one thing. Like, I've never seen so many yellow flags on a track in a practice for futures last weekend. And that made me kind of realize a lot from this, because I was really kind of curious too. I mean, I watched Deegan and he did not look very good to me. As far as, he was fast, but he wasn't in control. He was trying to do the whole scrubby flash stuff, just like most of them were. And it was kind of weird to see, because I get it. Everyone's going out there and they just want to go. But there was literally at one point, the whole field was just yellow flags. And I'm not saying, like I said, I get it. These kids are just trying to prove something to themselves, maybe. And maybe I'm not just saying just Deegan, but most of them. A lot of them is the first time they've ever touched a real Supercross track. And so, like I said, is it the right time? Maybe not. But at the same time, I also have a weird feeling that it's a different pressure still, because now it's like his career has really started, right? So if he's not where he thinks he needs to be, you can tell someone all day long that, hey, you can chill out, but we're all racers at the same time. And he's going to want to do well. He's going to want to perform for himself, his team, the people around him, prove a point that he can do this. And that's what kind of makes me nervous, just because that mistake that was made, he wasn't anything that could happen to anybody last weekend, his crash, nothing on him. But if he would have just chilled out, he would have been fine. But it's that same thing where he's just pushing that limit. And I watched it in the first qualifying practice with him. He pushed so hard, he was casing stuff, and just wasn't quite smooth, where I looked at a couple of the other dudes that were kind of just chilling out and just making their time. And that's why I think he wasn't the fastest right away through the night, and didn't end up on the top of the pole. But like I said, I don't know. It's hard to say.
Todd, you're there for press day. I'm almost guaranteed that he was invited to press day. Did he watch him ride? How does he look a couple hours ago?
So I only got to see a little bit. So I just head down. He was just right up when I was going. He looks good. I think he's chilling out a little bit, but we'll see how that happens when it comes time to race. The kid's a phenom. So like I said, I don't really care who anybody is. If all eyes are on you like that in the industry that you are promoting, it's going to be hard to, I don't know. To not be that person who wants to prove a point to everybody and just not just go gung ho, I think it's going to be hard for him personally.
All right, I got to say a couple things because the chat has been going
torching
off
me.
the hook. first off, if there's anybody that's somewhat been ready, wouldn't it be Deegan? Because he's on his 85. He's had like a practice Supercross track almost his entire life compared to like what Futures is supposed to be for a typical kid. And then I'm going to get a bunch of shit for this because I always do. But so many people are talking about amateur bikes versus pro bikes. Okay. My humble opinion is there's a saying that says it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission. Of course, you got your hand stuck in the cookie jar for Loretta. So you're going to make a press release always saying, hey, of course, the kid's on amateur stuff. You might have a kit suspension, but it's amateur stuff. My thing is like, who in the right mind is going to try to claim another motorcycle or try to say anything about this not being a pro bike? To me, dude, I'm on the spectrum thinking that those factory kids were not completely on amateur bikes, regardless of what somebody says. Hey, I don't have a big bore. Don't protest me. It's not a big bore. Come on. We've all grown up in racing. We all know it's right there. There's a little saying there. Cooksey, you sound like you want to add something to this. Go for it, brother.
No, I watched him, and up until the point where I watched him ride that first session last week, I saw everything that Todd saw. Like, he came out there and I expected him to just be much head and shoulders better than those other kids because of all those things you said about him riding Supercross forever. He wasn't. He looked like a kid that needs a little bit more time. And just like with Patrick Mahomes, probably one of the best quarterbacks in football, they sit him for a year. It's a broken system where we throw them in. Now, 10th place is a good finish. 10th place is amazing. I'm sure anyone would be stoked to get a 10th place finish, but that will be a disappointment for Deegan because of the hype he's rolling in with. Had he rolled in with regular hype, not James Stewart, Ricky Carmichael, Adam Cincerillo hype, and if you set the expectations lower, but they're not, and it's going to be hard on the kid. And that's why I say it's going to kind of wreck him. And I don't know if they can take, I don't know that any kid at that age can take that kind of disappointment and that kind of criticism. And people will say, I'm hard on him, but I'm not. I think he's going to be a great pro. I just don't think he's a superstar like the top guys. I don't think he's generational.
Dude, there's a big argument there because truthfully, I almost could see it both ways as a win-win for him because of his massive following. Regardless of what the fans on my channel say, they're going to say something different on his channel, and he's got a massive following. They're going to be behind him even if he gets last place. So do you guys want to talk about some of the other future riders popping up here, like Talon Hawkins? Yeah, because we could talk about Deegan all time, clickbait, dude. Whatever. Do you guys want to have a prediction? Let's do it live prediction.
Todd's got something to say.
The one kid, I will say, I can't remember how to pronounce his last name, but he ended up being the fastest.
Bomer, Julian Bomer is a bad dude.
He's ready. Let me tell you something. That kid is gnarly. So he started hitting the quad and stuff before any of the dudes in press, anything on a 250. Yeah. And I was talking to him. So I was talking to him before practice started. Like, I've heard of him a little bit and stuff like that. I was talking to him, chatting with him. He's a cool kid. Bro, I was so impressed with that kid. Like, unbelievably impressed.
Todd, I'm with you. I went into the day thinking Deegan was going to be the superstar, and I left thinking Bomer is the superstar.
Dude, that was such a good weekend for him. Just getting his name out there, because a lot of people I talked to didn't know who he was. And I was like on the fence. I'm like, I've heard of his name, but I didn't know who he was. They know who he is now. I mean, he had a rough time in the main, whatever. Regardless, he still made a really big statement in how he was riding in qualifying. I was like, dude, this kid is so legit. I'm going to keep an eye out for him now, 100%.
Well, and when I watch the futures, I don't really care who won or lost. I look at the way they were riding and the performance. That's what I'm judging Deegan off. I don't care that he got fifth, but I'm looking at the way they performed, just like Todd was.
What team does he ride for? Who does his motors?
So Twisted does his motors.
Yeah, there's a consistency on that Twisted. Dude, it's like
they know what they're doing.
Damn,
I know what they're doing.
Yeah, because that bike was fast. I did notice that. Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Johnny. I didn't interrupt you. I'm sorry.
Any last thoughts?
Are we still on Deegan or on futures in general?
Take us where you want to go, Mario.
Yeah, this is unfiltered, dude. We could talk about all sorts of different shit if you want to.
No, I mean, you guys kind of touched on it. I mean, you got Talon Hawkins coming in, and that's another one of those things. If Jalek Swole was healthy, is Talon Hawkins even racing this weekend?
Nope.
I don't think so.
No, he wasn't.
I mean, I don't know that that's a good call, bad call. I mean, you got to remember, I mean, you're also putting bikes out there and riders out there because you're really entertaining the fans. I mean, I know we have the competition and everything, but you're putting on a show and you got sponsors back, and I mean, I get it. You want to throw them out there. So I'd be kind of interested. The people in Hawkins' corner, do they see this as a good thing that he gets to start a little bit earlier? Or is this oh crap?
You make a good point. I almost think that he could be an underdog and take over the show over Deegan if he performs well, because everybody's going to be looking at him and could just do his own thing. Todd, what do you think?
You know what? I think he's gonna do really good, Hawkins. But I don't know. Like I said, I think all the futures kids are gonna have their time and place, but I don't think they would put him in if he wasn't somewhat ready on that one. So I think he would still move up Hawkins for that one.
Well, okay, on that, let's go ahead and talk about fill-ins. And there's so many guys that are getting hurt in practice. Why is that? Why in this sport, especially Supercross, the fruition rate on these guys is something like 50-50. By round 17, you've got half as many factory guys out there. Like, what the heck is going on? And truthfully, like what Mario was saying, is Talon probably wouldn't be racing if Swole was there. But they've got to fill in for somebody. And what is the dynamic here? Are these guys riding too hard during practice that they're injuring themselves? I mean, coach, you're all about performance and you coach so many other riders. I think it needs to change. I just made a video about how training more methodically should be in this sport so that you're not more liable for injuries.
To me, you've got two different subjects going on at the same time. To Mario's point, I personally don't understand why they're not going and getting somebody like a Todd or a Kevin Morantz or somebody that has experience. The only reason why they're putting a fill-in rider in is because they don't want to get financially penalized for not having representation of the bike on the track. We get that. Why would you not take somebody like Todd, who's got the experience and the maturity? He's a good articulate speaker. He's been there before. He knows that bike, what the bike's capable of, not because Todd's today, but it could be a Kevin Morantz. It could be Todd. We can come up with a dozen different riders. That's the part on the fill-ins that I'm always confused with. Chris, you're very tight. Dylan Schwartz is coming on, who was with us last year that tried doing his own program and pulled the plug.
Ryan Brees.
Ryan decided he was going to just hope that somebody got hurt and get a call in. So is he going to get a call in? Not to like what Todd was saying. When you look at Talon outdoors, he did well. Outdoors versus Supercross, that difference of night and day. I don't know why you would take somebody that, he won the futures last weekend, but didn't have just this ridiculous runaway from everybody else. And to Todd's point earlier, now you're going to thrust him out there with guys that are 5-6 years older than him, a lot of experience, 30 pounds heavier, that know how to slam each other in a very, in a constructive racing way. Not that they don't shy away from rubbing as racing. So to me, you've got two different things going on. You've got young athletes that are getting, the amateur system is just absolutely annihilating them. We're not seeing the development of athletes coming out of the amateurs. I go back to when I was doing the Toyota Moving Forward program. You had Chisholm, Kennard, Bonnie, the Hahn brothers. There were 8 or 9 guys in that 250 class that were coming out, and they all went into factory rides and did great for 4 or 5 years. Show me 4 riders that have come out in the last 3 years from Loretta's that have just smashed the 250 scene. Justin Cooper. Exactly. Justin Cooper didn't smash Loretta's. Sexton didn't smash Loretta's. They might have had 1 or 2 wins here or there, but go back to the era of Nico Izzy, have, like I said, Matt Bonney, Kyle Chisholm, Trey Kennard. Who's the other guy that got strung out on drugs with Cowie?
It's true.
I know you're talking. It's
Stroop.
Yeah, Stroop.
You know, you look at that generation. You had 40 bikes on the line, there were 20 guys from Kyle Keelan all the way through that could have possibly won in that. You haven't seen that number of athletes coming through. I think the amateur program needs to be looked at because, Todd, do you mind? I don't want to put you on the spot. What was your best finish at Loretta's and what year was it?
It was a 5th, and it was a while. I don't remember the year though, but
just ballpark. How many years ago would you say that was?
Oh shoot, it was 15, 6. I'm 30 now, so probably around like 16 or 17 years. You know, so
and look at the athletic maturity that Todd has built. We don't see that right now. We do not. All you have to do is look at the Team Green program and look at Ryder D and Jet. Where are they at?
Coach, let me interrupt you. Todd,
yeah.
I know you've grown up in racing.
Yeah.
Now it seems as if in order to be successful, you can't be a privateer. Going pro without having a factory ride already is it's incredibly difficult. It's like you need to be a stay-at-home kid. You need to just have a full-time just ride where you're not going to school. I just repeated myself there, but you live at a training facility, Millsaps, Reynolds, Club MX, something. Do you think that that's detrimental to the sport, or do you think it's just an evolution of the elitism that is motorcycle racing is turning into?
So I have my one big problem with the whole thing, and it's a big thing with the whole system is kids aren't like, they're trying to turn this almost into NASCAR too from our end now, right? Like they want it to be very like niche thing. It'll never be NASCAR. You know, how many kids have stock cars and stuff? How many kids have dirt bikes? Just not the same. And if you don't let a rider mature, I know a lot of kids and riders who didn't fully mature on the bike until they're at least like 20. And they didn't actually like hit that point where they're like, okay, I'm thinking smartly. I'm not making mistakes. I mean, everyone's capable of the mistakes, but as a rider matures, I think they change as a rider, like completely. And so I think personally, the factory amateur thing is good to an extent, but it ruins the sport quite a bit. I mean, I don't know. I had a KTM ride when I was a kid, and it was a lot different than when I lost that ride from injuries and had to start over and start doing it on my own, you know. And it goes like that for everything. And it's like, I don't know. I feel like if you do all this kid, you pretty much take his life and make it run around dirt bikes, where I know kids who also they got hurt or something like that. Well, now their lives pretty much done. Okay. You have no backup whatsoever. Unfortunately in life, you're going to need one at some point. It's just what it is. And I've seen too many kids get hurt, and then it leads them down this really bad path. And I mean, it's a path of just like, you're a failure in a sense. And it's more of a psychological thing. I mean, some people are okay with it, but if you actually have a passion for it, I think it really, really ruins the rider as a kid, because they're still kids, you know, they're treating them like they're 25-year-old men and they're children. So I don't know.
No, that was a good explanation. Mario, you've got a little boy that's racing. I know you guys do some woods riding, but what goes through your head if he wanted to make this a professional career? I mean, just honest opinion, brother.
Yeah. So, I mean, we do a lot of woods racing. There's a lot less money in that, but you know, kind of what I've seen is there are some kids out there that are on, I'm going to call them semi-factory rides. Like they have support at a young age. It's not quite like what you see in motocross though. And you still do see guys, which you don't see a lot of this in motocross, where, you know, just like Todd was talking about, they might be 20, 21 years old before they start. Then they're just now, like, they didn't come up through like Pro Circuit Kawasaki or Red Bull KTM. They're now getting some sort of factory support or a factory ride. I don't want to say later in age, because it's not like 21's that old, but they didn't have to go through an entire system. So that's what kind of, you know, you watch the motocross side, and we know all these, you know, you guys mentioned Ryder D, and obviously we've been following along with Hayden Deegan forever. We've been following these guys for 8 years before they ever get to the pro level. And I can't really think of another sport, you know, motorsports, anything. Like, I'm a big MotoGP fan, and, you know, they don't quite have the system together there either. Like they do have a feeder system where you got like Moto 3 and Moto 2, and eventually you make it up to but it's kind of fascinating for me where you see these guys pull up in these factory rigs at local motocross races. And I mean, we can call them amateur bikes, but they're not. I mean, they're essentially pro bikes. They might.
My brother Mario,
I mean,
hit with the truth facts here.
And I do want to say, because since we're talking, since I mentioned woods racing, we were at a race this past weekend, and there was a familiar face making his off-road debut. Zach Osborne. It was cool to see him out on the track this weekend.
Dude, I can't get over that. His handle. Sorry, I'm not trying to. They're just a smaller bend. So because he's got smaller hands, so maybe he can be a really good woods rider. I wish Zach Osborne all the best, man. But to go back to Todd's point is, guys don't know anything else. Like once they go retire, they're going, what else do I do? I just was talking with Damon Bradshaw. And Bradshaw was like, I needed to keep racing. I needed to keep making money. So he went to go do the woods thing. You look at Mike Brown, you look at Mike Brown might be the exception, not the rule, because he's still 60 and fast as hell and like never seems to get injured. But it seems like there's no real life skills being built after racing. And racing, you're done almost after a little bit after 30. I mean, it's ironic that we see the injuries increasing, but yet the length of people's careers are becoming longer. I think it's a weird dynamic. Maybe it'd just be an ironic thing. But on the 250 guys, speaking of old guys, Chris Blows filling in for Joe Shimoda on the green bike. Dude, is he finally going to get a good podium or potentially get a W? Todd, did you watch him ride? I mean, we all know Blows.
I haven't seen him ride, but dude, I'm so pumped for Blows. Like, I like that dude a lot, and it's so unfortunate that it took him this long to actually get a real factory ride after he retired, basically. But you know what? He's earned it. I think he's going to do fantastic. Last year he rode so good, so I hope he does. I hope, I think he's definitely capable of podiuming. We'll see about a win, but I think from what I've seen, talked to a lot of people. I was out at the AJE test track this last week and was riding out there, and they're telling me all about it. I guess he's looking awesome, so I think he's going to do great.
Cooksey, I know you have lots to say about Blows.
I love Blows. Blows is the man. This guy, he's just tough as nails. Suck it up. I mean, hit the whoops wide open. I mean, he has the name Zombie Blows for a reason. Like you can't kill him. Can't kill what's already dead, right?
He's old school, dude. He has that arena cross grit. I think we were talking about this, and then the funniest thing was, it was me and Josh Greco, and we're like, you know what they should do? Because the Cali PC is pretty much out. They should just get all the gnarly old arena cross dudes, like bring Bowers back, and they're like, all our guys got taken out, so we're gonna take everyone else out and just put all like the gnarly old OG arena cross guys on the PC team and just let it be gnarly.
Todd, did you see Bowers when he raced Germany a couple weeks ago?
I didn't get to.
Oh, he didn't make the main. He's clearly, he just went for the show up money, I'm sure, but he doesn't look like he's in race shape.
I know.
But dude, I love him. I'm with you. I get it. I'm all in.
I just think it'd be hilarious. I think it'd be like, well, only people in the industry would really get it, I guess. But I just thought it'd be funny, like, dude, bring all the gnarly arena cross champions and just put them on the PC team and just let them go just nuts. I would love that.
Todd, you've been doing this long enough, dude. I was talking with the owner of Arena Cross this week, and he was telling me something that they're implementing to try to pay the riders more, and it's called Motivate, where you can go onto the website and you literally see the entry list, and you can say, hey, okay, here's Todd Bannister. I'm going to give him $200 for show up money, but then I'm going to motivate him. If he makes the main, I'm going to give him $1,000. And so then you can log in and go, hey, I could potentially make this much. And if perhaps you don't make the main, that money goes back into an account for you to do it next weekend. What do you think about something like that? And you think Supercross should be implementing and potentially innovating more than they have been, because there's places like AMA Supercross and World Supercross that are going to take some of the popularity and potentially the riders?
So I'm going to be really biased on this one. I have a feeling that it would get taken over by like felled or something like that, and we wouldn't see enough of the cut. Or what would happen is a lot of people would overlook privateers. Just cause, I mean, not all the people. I think the privateer would be massive. I think it's a great idea. I would
So
be totally on
popularity,
board.
the guys that don't need the money would probably get the money.
Would get the money. And which it happens all the time. I mean, look at the privateer LCQ race last year. You're telling me Chisholm, who had a factory ride last year, should have been in that race? I get it. It was Pulp's deal and Steve's deal, and to each his own on that. But like, I personally don't think he should have been in that. I think it should have gone to another LCQ guy who is paying his own way to be there, not some dude who's making over $100,000 racing each year. But it makes for interesting media, and it makes for set. So it's like, there's good and bad through all. So, I mean, I think that'd be a great thing. I just would be scared the money would go to the wrong place. I mean, I think the dude in the back of his pickup truck, which I've seen a few of them here this weekend, like I said, I've seen them, and they like that dude, I think, needs some help too. And so, and a little bit more, which they are good. I will say Feld has gotten a lot better about promoting that stuff. So I will give them that.
Like Greco with his tent on top of his little itty bitty van.
Oh, that's so
Bro,
awesome.
and
Sorry, that's
his igloo. He's like right out here, and like I can't get over that thing. And it's cold right now, so I told him, I said, you better find a way to get that dog up there for some body heat, because you're gonna freeze.
Is his girlfriend his mechanic right now?
Not this weekend. I don't even think he has a mechanic this weekend. So me and him were like alternating off. Like usually, like if I don't have a mechanic, we set each other's whole shop devices and just go down. Me and him been good buddies for years. We travel together, like caravanning and stuff like that. But now we've done that for years. Like if we don't have mechanics, we just set our stuff together, and then we go out there and stuff like that. It's pretty rad.
So no team mustaches. You guys you're not gonna try to grow one out.
I don't want nothing to do with that. I look like a weirdo with a mustache. I drive a van. I don't think it's quite right for me. He can pull it off, but he's known for the mustache. I'm known for not the mustache. So, I don't want to, I just look like I'm in a cult for Josh. I don't want that.
Yeah. You don't want to have any big stickers of like free candy on the van here. Well, Todd, I know you need to get to sound. So the last question I'm going to ask you before you leave is, okay, you haven't ridden press day. What you are thinking, or what are you going through that seems like it might be difficult? What part of the track are you focusing on this night to get ready for qualifying tomorrow?
So right now, for me personally, the rhythms have been kind of my issue, and the whoops. I mean, the whoops have actually been made really nice this year, with my shoulder and stuff like that. It just, hitting it constantly is still a little bit, I can only do it so many laps right now. So just getting the timing down, and the 450 has a lot on it, and they keep doing this thing where they're like having big jumps after straightaways. Like last weekend was the finish line, and this weekend's a triple now, and there's a lot of speed to that triple, and they boot you pretty good. So that kind of stuff. So, I mean, the big thing this week, I think, is the rhythms. It's kind of tight going into them. So I think that's going to be a lot of where, all the time is going to be made, to be honest with you. And there's a lot of options, it looks like, this weekend. So it should be really interesting with those. I think that's going to be the biggest key this week.
Okay. I did say last one, but just out of curiosity, the over under. I know, Cooksey, you could piss me off. Mario, same thing. Coach, you're being respectful. I know I'm talking a lot, but after the start, that over under, I know we're going to talk about this once you leave. Does it look safe or does it look sketchy?
We were literally just talking about this in the stands. I don't know why they keep doing the U-turns and I don't like it, and it's way steeper than normal. So it's going to be interesting. The starts this year have been weird. Like last weekend, you went off of a berm. I mean, I personally don't really like the over-unders. I get it. They're cool, but like, I don't really care for them. At least we're not landing off like the old Vegas finish lines, but it's going to be interesting. I think that it's right after the start. I think that's probably the best place for it, because other than that, only place they could go is off the triple. So it is good, but it's going to bunch up. So I have a feeling like they're going to land off that and everyone's going to bunch, because it's really tight going into that next section, which is like literally a single. You can either go double, then table to single, or you go like, one dude went 3 on, I think. I don't know who it was. And then you can go like kind of roll single. So, I mean, there's a lot of options there, but it's going to bunch up. So we will see. I don't know. I wouldn't want to fall off that thing with like 5 people wide, though, is the only problem.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Todd, I appreciate you coming on. Good luck.
Yeah,
Stay
man.
safe and just keep it WFO. Make sure you go follow him. I've got his links in the description below. Cooksey, Mario, Coach, what the hell do you guys want to talk about?
Hold on, Todd.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
guys.
man.
Best of
take
luck,
it easy.
Todd.
Hey, thank you guys. Awesome for being on here. I appreciate it so much. Talk to you a little later.
Talk to you soon. I want to go back to the fill-in riders real quick. Isn't it interesting that they're bringing Blosin on the 450? You got a good old veteran that we all love. We can't wait to watch him race. And on the other end of the spectrum, we're talking about the 250 class, and they're bringing up a guy that just raced futures last week. It doesn't make any sense.
Is going to race 250s.
Yeah, Blosin's
No,
250.
No, what I'm saying is the idea that one team, we're all talking about, they're bringing up a veteran rider. We even talked about, hey, go get all the old arena cross guys. It's exactly what we were just talking about. There's so many talented privateer riders that are out there that had they been given that opportunity to go fill in for PC or for Husqvarna, I think that would just be such a smarter move with the money and the equipment versus a guy that you're going to essentially, you're going to try, he's wet behind the ears and you're going to throw him right into the wolves on a bike that's got a ton of R&D dollars behind it with somebody who doesn't have the experience to push that equipment to its ability. I would much rather give it to a veteran 250 rider. But just like when Kevin Morantz got to fill in for Butler Brothers, they only gave him 2 days to figure out the suspension, but somebody with that kind of maturity where you could take them to a practice track and let them shake the bike down. If I'm a sponsor of those teams and you're asking me, should you put in somebody who's wet behind the ears or put somebody who's got 5 years experience like Todd, I'm going Todd all day long. Doesn't make any sense to me.
It'll be interesting because Cooksey, I think you brought it up. Like this 250 East round's kind of like Anaheim 1 for those folks, and you're putting a veteran like Chris Bloss out there. Granted, probably hasn't been on that specific bike a ton, but he's raced a ton. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes out and gets a really good finish this weekend. He's not going to have the nerves that a lot of these younger guys are going to have, especially the ones that are racing for the first time in an actual Supercross main event. So I'm kind of in agreement with you, Coach. Putting that veteran rider out there, especially to kick off this East Coast, it may pay dividends for Pro Circuit.
Well, look at Josh Hansen. Anytime he was brought in on the 250 class, he was able to. I mean, Josh Hansen is just a different animal on a bike, but closest.
I'd go get him right now, Hopper.
What, Josh Hansen?
Oh yeah, after the way he rode straight rhythm, just pull him off the couch. I'll take him over any of those rookies.
Well, especially in the 250 class with a shortened race, it's not that long, and he's so smooth that he what he lacks in fitness, he makes up with being smooth and efficient.
Mario, I already know what these two knuckleheads already have to say, but dude, you're a big MotoGP guy. I'm assuming big MXGP guy, Tom Vial. Tom Vial, what do you think? Prediction. I want to hear it. I want to hear some W's. I want you to get all hyped. Don't be saying 5th place. None of that bullshit. I want to hear honest opinion, but it has to be a good one.
No caveat.
I'm not really expecting much of anything. I'm not. It's just totally different type of racing. And I don't know. We'll see what happens. But I really, that's one, I looked at the entry list and I just kind of skimmed over it and went, not a real needle mover for me. Not really excited about it.
Johnny,
whoa. You
Johnny.
guys are going to this next.
Johnny.
Hey, can I address these guys are killing me in the chat room today? Holy cow, the Deegan fans. And listen, I love these guys. Look at the numbers are probably bigger for this show than any other show so far, and they are roasting me, but I appreciate them being in there. I just want to tell them thank you for watching.
And make sure you go like and subscribe and share this video. And subscribe to Cooksey's other channel, dude. And if there is a little bit of tough love in there, we know that Cooksey has some thick skin. But if you want to share the roast. There's no such thing.
Light me up. It won't be the first or the last time. Trust me,
dude.
Johnny,
I'm sorry, Cooksey, because
bring it in, man. I'm fine with it.
Me up, but
I light you up sometimes, Johnny.
You keep going
that's
after
what I'm saying is the kid can't lose in this scenario. Even if he comes out, if he has an epic highlight reel, it's going to come into like some sort of a narrative of what word am I looking for? You know, a underdog story for him, because just he's masked such a following. And it's not necessarily like, okay, there is a saying that I'd rather be hated for who I am than loved for who I am not. What Deegan and Brian and all of them have done is they've built a community around them being real. So generally the community loves them. So no matter what they do, even if it's wrong, it's going to pay dividends with them at some point. It's just, I think just like what you were saying, Cooksey, as far as him potentially not being a generational talent like Jet, I do agree with you. However, who do we think is going to make more money at the end of the career? It's probably going to be Hayden.
Well, yeah, no, we didn't ask about money or marketing. Nobody on earth has done a better job at marketing than the Deegans and the Deegan family. But what I'm saying is I'm just looking at like career longevity, and I don't know, man. And do you, in the end, am I going to say who made more money or who won championships?
Oh, okay. Rephrasing that, Coach and Mario, you guys can interrupt me because I do need to shut the fuck up. But my point is that I think racing is turning into a little bit more of entertainment where you don't have to win. You don't have to win. And potentially for him to have a long career, he doesn't need to be the top guy. Does that make sense at all? I mean, do you guys have a rebuttal?
I agree with you, and it's probably a terrible example, but and I'm a fan of this guy, but like Dean Wilson's stuck around on factory rides and really good rides for years, and I'm not saying he's not a great rider, but I think a lot of the reason he has stuck around so much, not near the size of Deegan's following, but Dino's a likable guy. He's got a lot of fans. He's really good with the sponsors. He's really good with the fans, and I think if we just would have gone off Dino's results, he probably wouldn't have been on that Rockstar Husqvarna for quite as long. So I understand what you're saying, Johnny. And I think it's hard to separate out the success. Like, I think Cooksey's right. One of the days we're going to look back we're just going to go back and look at the record books and go, you know, because what do they say every single time we're watching this? You know, we go to the science of Supercross with 7-time Supercross champion, Jeremy McGrath. Like, that's what we're going to talk about. But I also think, you know, depending on what he wants to, I mean, the kid's just now starting his Supercross career, but depending on what he wants to do later in life, I mean, he can transcend and go do something else. When you were talking about racers and they're done racing and it's like, crap, what do I do next? I think he's going to have opportunities for what he wants to do next. And it doesn't necessarily have to be within the motorcycle industry.
And he's good in front of a camera. How many riders are not good in front of a camera? Like, he's already got the podium speech nailed down, right? Yep. Deegan merch right here. Drop going on. All right, we Coach, you're like an Iceman right now. I feel like
no. You guys have good points, and I just want to chime in on 3 of them. Deegan, and somebody in the chat room said it, and I agree with them. Deegan could go do exactly what Pastrana did. Remember seeing Pastrana on an RM125 tear up Daytona, and then 2 years later decides to jump his bike into the X Games river. And then you have Axel Hodges, full factory Kawasaki, decides to go out and start doing this free riding and is making tons of money. Deegan can go do whatever he wants because of social media and the marketing monster that he's created. He's not going to be hurting for money, to Chris's point. Are we talking about durability or are we talking about profitability? He can go wherever he wants and he'll be fine. I do agree with Chris. And I obviously it has a warm spot in my heart with working with AC on 85s. Who do you think has made more money, AC or Cooper Webb as a pro?
Webb, with those championships.
Hands down, right? To your point, Chris, AC got pulled up really early, got crushed physically. You remember that first video when he raced that Outdoor National and he said, dude, they smashed me like I slept with their girlfriend last night. Think about that video, right? We all laugh about that. And then he's just been completely paralyzed with injuries. And now whose bank account is fatter? AC had a killer amateur career. Webb begged for a ride at Star. Going to your point earlier, Ollie, Mario, about saying, when you look at all the good things that those guys go through at a facility, right? So you have the facility kids with all the options. Webb, who had nothing, begged for a ride at Star. Webb was going to prove a point, Pitbull in a fight. Now he's got multiple championships on 250, 450, much larger bank account. He's getting larger and stronger. AC is wondering if he can even come back after another injury, Now can he even hang on to the bike? And I love AC, love him, love his parents, great family. But if you're looking to Chris's point about coming in too early, not being able to go the distance, price point, profitability, Deegan will make the most amount of money of anybody that's in the pro ranks right now, hands down, probably is right on par with some of the bigger guys already. But if you're looking at coming in too soon and having a racing career, Chris's point is very, very well taken. And then you go back to the whole idea of the facilities. The facilities need to do a better job of not ruining these kids, because you have kids that are pretty much whoever the hot shot is at that facility. Most everybody's just doing whatever that one rider needs. So the facility markets the one person. Look at, he's got a Loretta Lynn's championship. They market that to get the people to come in. And then I've had this experience with 3 specific athletes. They come in, they're the top dog. They get used as who everybody is chasing. He gets worn down while everybody runs him down. Everybody else gets better at the expense of this person. This guy gets spit out. Well, now you're working the law of numbers. I get it. It's a business. But to your point in your question, Johnny, is it's not growing the sport. The attrition rate is higher than the growth rate right now. So we're at a negative net gain. And then you look at the third part to the question that's been asked several times. Where is Evan Ferry?
I was just going to say that.
I was going to say that
the
too.
most viewers on this show right now. So you guys need to stop what you're doing. I need you to WFO that like button, show some love for everybody we have on the channel. Subscribe to their channel. The link is in the description. And then I don't know if we're supposed to pop it off, but Coach, you've been talking. And yes,
Hey.
A lot of people in the chat have been saying, where is Evan Ferry? I said he doesn't have a ride. Rob, can you?
No, he has a ride. He has a ride with Triumph, and he's the test rider
Right.
for the Triumph bike, and he will be for the next year. So that's where he's at,
But why isn't he racing amateurs?
because they don't have a bike to race.
I mean, I look like an idiot because I should have known that because they don't have a bike to race. I've been seeing a little bit of the Stark bikes showing up in dealerships. You can't buy them, but you can just drool over them. So maybe that's what we'll start seeing with Triumph coming in. But thank you.
Well, I've talked to a couple of people that have ridden the bike, and they say the platform is really, really good. Really, really good. So, you know,
The
you
Triumph or the
shake that.
Stark? Sorry, because I think I confused.
I
it.
apologize. I screwed you up. No, the Triumph. I hear that it's a really good bike, and it's a really solid platform, and it's not emulating anything that's out there. So, you know, they're looking at bringing the program into the 450 class in 24. So that's going to be perfect 25. So that's going to be perfect for Jason Anderson to do a 1-year deal with Cowie, jump over and go to Triumph with Bobby Hewitt, which we know that those guys are inseparable. I look at this next year when they bring the Triumph in, they get a couple second-tier guys, just like they did at JGR, so they can shake the bike down. There's no expectations for them to perform well. They get their foot in the door, and then it sets the stage for 25, where you have Triumph. We haven't talked about Beta. Beta's out there. Sh1t is talking about coming into it. So, you know, we could see some very exciting things going on. I like it right now because I've got some B riders that I think will be in that ebb and flow in that next stepping ground when those bikes come available. So I personally am excited about 2 years from now. But that's where Evan Ferry is at. He's the designated Triumph guy right now.
Hey, Johnny, I know how we get some likes on this video. If you think I'm a dumbass, hit that thumbs up button right now. That'll fill that button, dude.
For the team, taking
Let's see.
one.
9. Let's see how many people really dislike me.
Cooksey, we love you, dude. I'm like the annoying little brother, and it's just a dynamic. You know, Mario, we've met before, dude. You're a standout, dude. Truthfully, I don't know why these guys are my friends, because let's face it, I am in a weird way kind of annoying, but kind of funny as well. What do you guys think of some of the fill-ins for Club MX? You've got Kilroy filling in for Marchbanks. How well do you think he's going to perform?
Who are you asking?
The whole panel. Just start interrupting. I didn't give a.
Okay, Coach. You know what? You start us off, Coach.
Well, I think Kilroy, I like him as a person. I think he's a good rider. We're back to the idea that the factory bikes that are out there, and I know that Club is not a full factory bike, but I would imagine based on these results, they're getting better and better equipment. They've got better funding behind them this year, and it obviously shows. I think the fill-in riders will be good. I still think the original guys, you know, I've got J-Mart on the podium up there. I don't see any of the fill-in riders shaking up the top 5, if that's what you're asking.
All right, sorry, I'm trying to do something. Mario, you go.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I mean, I've been a Marchbanks fan for a while, and you know, I'm sure Kilroy will do just fine, but I think it's definitely a step back with your fill-in rider. I mean, Marchbanks, I mean, he's first off big dude, but second, I mean, I never, and I'm glad he's on good equipment now. I was kind of surprised when that Cowie ride fell through a few years ago, and he ended up with this other team. But I'm glad he's found a good landing spot, and it's cool to see him up there running. And hopefully he heals up and we see him back on the bike. But I'm kind of with the only fill-in rider. And are we counting Blos as a fill-in rider since he's the only one?
Oh yeah, he's definitely filling.
Okay, I mean, I could see him maybe pulling off a top 5 this weekend, but I'm kind of with Coach on the rest of them. I think you're going to have guys making mains, which is what they're being paid to do. Maybe some top 10s out of them, but probably nobody shaking up a podium or anything.
Well, and that's the thing with like Talon Hawkins and some of these guys. To get a top 10 is a success. When you look at Deegan, that's not a success. That's not what people expect. And that's why I feel like it's an issue for him. So somebody asked in the chat room, where do I think Deegan's going to end up? I bet he's somewhere between 5 and 10, which if you're a regular rookie and you're not coming in.
So you're saying top 10. You can't say 5, 10. You're saying just top 10.
Yeah, top 10. But I don't think he'll be higher than 5th.
I was gonna say I don't put him in the top 5 if that's what you're asking. When you say top 10, I would say 5 through 6 through 10, not top 5.
Yeah. Okay.
Now here's the only caveat, because he'll make us all look like idiots. If he gets a good start and he stays and nobody comes in and pressures him, you know, well, I'm going to take that back based on what Cooksey said, because that whoop section looks pretty gnarly. It looks pretty long. Yeah, that whoop section is going to be a game changer. If it's as brutal as they say it is, you know, Johnny, you always do a good job on the track map and the walkthrough and stuff, and I do agree with you. You know, it can go obviously 2 different ways. If some of the team managers get their way, it'll just be a long roller section. But if they keep it really difficult, I don't see Deegan being able to do very well in those, just because of the height and everything.
Well, and let's not forget too, like when Mike Alessi turned pro with all that hype, what did every single current veteran pro that got near him do? They rammed him, they slammed him. They don't like that. That's
just knock him off balance.
And that's what Deegan is. He's not going to get any leeway from any of these guys.
But I disagree. His community, they could literally blue ball the hell out of anybody if they see any adverse movement against their boy Deegan. I feel like they could back him up. And
did you just say ugly. Blue ball?
You know, choice of words. I was going with something like.
You're supposed to say,
honestly, they could.
Supposed to blackball. Blue ball is when you're not putting out. So I would hope they don't put out for him. So sorry, I love you, Johnny. I love you. I'm just kidding. I just like the things you say.
Think about this. Think about this, guys. Because having a chance to work with some PGA players in the past, and Chris DeMarco, I went to high school with. Do you guys remember when Chris DeMarco got into the sudden death with Tiger Woods? And well, that's okay. Essentially, what my point in all of this is, what was the discussion around the futures race last weekend? It wasn't that Talon Hawkins won. It was that Hayden Deegan lost. And that's when you know you've got the sport by the groin. To your point, Johnny, with the social media and the crucifixion of everybody, if somebody is going to be the guy, let's say, like you said, to your point, Chris, let's say somebody comes in and just absolutely takes Deegan to the ropes. That person is going to get death threats. They're going to be hated on. They're going to be blackballed, blue ball, red ball. They're going to be every color in the rainbow balled. Okay. Social media today can make or break it. Now, whether or not that bothers you or not, because, you know, I have my own opinion on social media, a bunch of keyboard warriors in their parents' basement, a lot of times with a big voice. But I'll be very interested to see how the social media approaches, because like you said, you could win if you, like with Chris DeMarco, it wasn't that Chris DeMarco won the shootout against Tiger. It was that Tiger Woods lost. That's when
how bad would it have been for Mike Alessi if social media was what it is today? Would it have helped him or would it have hurt him?
It would have been pretty bad.
It would have been rough.
Well, I think it depends. I think if you're on a factory ride, it's definitely going to be rough. I think if you're on a lower tier ride or a privateer, not saying it's going to be good for you, but damn, does it get your sponsors and your name up there to the forefront that you would have never been mentioned before?
Exactly.
What does Johnny always say?
All I have to do is take out Hayden to make highlight reels.
I mean, how many followers?
Don't do that. That's a joke.
You make your name if you do that.
Yeah, I mean, how many followers did that kid get? I know I clicked on his account and I don't remember his name now, but the one that
Brennan
claimed the bike.
He's
Yeah,
a good kid.
Yeah, I mean, nobody knew who he was before, and now I don't know what his following's up to now, but it's a hell of a lot bigger than it was before that happened.
Hey, I know you got to be leaving here, Coach, real quick, but this was interesting to me. Hymus, what do you think he's going to do against Deegan? Cooksey, Hymus, Mario?
Oh, I thought you were talking to Coach. So
I mean, I did.
I think they're going to be about the
so
same.
Then I
Honestly,
panicked, so then I went to somebody else.
They're going to be about the same. I put him in the 6 to 10 range, and I think that's what you should expect out of a current rookie, because you're not getting the rookie debuts like when Bradshaw went in there, when you had guys that just moved to the 250 class or 450 class instantly. You got guys that been there, they're 25 years old, 28 years old, 30 years old. Guys been there for a while, so it's harder to break into that top 5. So I say 6 to 10 for Hymus and Deegan both, and I think that's good.
So Hymus, they've said he's going to do select rounds. Is he? Do you guys probably know more than I do? Are they really going to do select rounds, or we're going to? If
he's doing good, we're going to see him all year.
Okay.
If he's doing good, you're going to see him all year.
All right, that's kind of what I thought.
Here's a perspective to take a look at. I was kind of blown away by this. Mario, do you know who Luke Kalatsian is by chance?
I don't.
Okay, so last year at the Futures, Luke Kalatsian was up there banging with Ryder D and Jet and all those guys. He has barely been able to break into the top 15. And that dude is so fast, it's not even funny. But if you look at just last year's, he did 3 or 4 of the Futures races, was getting 3rd behind the Cowie boys. And here he is barely able to get into that night show and shake it up with the big boys. It'll be very interesting. Now, again, granted, Luke unfortunately did not get some of the support that he was originally offered. And we know equipment plays a significant role in your ability to be competitive. But I find that very, very interesting because Luke is extremely fast and talented. And so when you look at the Hymus, you look at the Hayden Deegan, you look at the Talon, you look at the Daxton and all those, the one that catches my attention, if we go back to Futures, is Daxton Bennett. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys. I don't think he had much Futures experience last year at all, if any, where the other guys, yeah. And then you look at Luke. So if we're looking at what the Futures does to kind of set the tone as to who's coming out of Futures and where do they fit in the night show, if you use a Luke Kalatsian on a privateer program, he's lucky to just make the main event. That just shows you how incredibly competitive the field is and how the equipment does make such. We all know equipment plays a significant role, but that one is what's really caught my attention.
It's we all can agree it's good for the sport, and love them or hate them, it's helping regardless. It's creating a narrative. It's doing so much. But I would like to ask Cooksey, Colt Nichols versus Justin Cooper on the 450. I feel like that is a good comparison with those guys, both on factory bikes, but not really competing to the level they did on the 250. What do you think?
I think we throw Christian Craig in there, and we got a main from last year, but they're battling for 10th. I don't see much more than that. They're good. That 450 class is so tough. I mean, Dylan Ferrandis is an outdoor champion, riding out of his mind on that Yamaha, and he's sitting 6th in the points. Ken Roxon, I'm going to eat my words. He looks just as good on the Suzuki. I apologize, Suzuki lovers. He looks as good, and I told people I'm washing those words down with my Twisted Tea. It is what it is.
Well, no, it's got to be progressive. You got to be changing your insurance because
it's the same team. It's the same team. I'm not.
Yeah, but all the money's just going on to Kenny's bike with the progressive.
But when I saw him go tabletop to tabletop last week, before anyone else, I fell out of my seat. I don't know if TV did that justice, Johnny. We looked at that.
No, they didn't. They should have hyped that shit up.
I'm sorry.
My butthole sitting on the couch was this big.
You had it wrong.
I had potato chips I had my my NOS energy drink there that had like 12 shots of caffeine in it. I was throwing shit everywhere because I was losing my mind. Because that
me and Wild Billy
incredibly
flew out of our
scary.
seats. The first time I saw him land on the table and hop off, you made it seem like that was actually not an issue. But that table to table, I was like, Billy, where did he take off from? And we're both figuring he went double and hit the lip. And then the next lap when he did it, me and like Billy and like 6 people are just like, that's not possible. How did that happen? It didn't look functionally possible.
Here's the big question, though. Ferrandis can't get a start to save his life. Justin Cooper can get some ripping hole shots. And, there's some comments here in the chat room about Justin not being very big. And I agree with that. But what Justin can do is he can get a good start. I don't think he'll be a top 5 guy consistently. If he doesn't get a good start, I agree with you, Chris. I think he's going to be buried in that 8th, 9th, and 10th. And I'm gutted for Colt Nichols because I was hoping he would be a little bit better because I'd love to see him get a shot for outdoors, but it's not looking very promising at this point, especially when you get to start and go back to 10th. It's one thing if you go 10 and go to 4, but to go the first 2 rounds, get the whole shot and go 9, 10, that's not good.
Look at the guys beating him, though. It's not like he's getting beat by, how many champions are in there that are beating him?
No, I'm not picking on him at all. I love Colt Nichols to death. I think he's such a cool dude. And I'm afraid he's not going to be retained for the summer. Yeah. And let's face it, musical chairs, where does he go? Unless there's a lot of attrition and there's another fill-in. But man, I like Colt. Husky? I don't think that's out of the question. But the challenge you run into is, think about this. 2 years ago, Colt Nichols was number 1. And then he comes out last year and on the opening lap, second or first turn, breaks his arm. You're just like, oh.
But I think he's right where he's supposed to be, because Craig, who was last year's champion, and they're similar 450 careers. Actually, Colt's better because he has that 6th.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, his agent, Christian Craig's agent, did a great job. He's got 2 years over there. Colt's got 6 months. That's it.
I get that.
That's all I'm saying. I just hate to see Colt not be able to be retained, especially with Jet coming up. That's going to be a huge lion's share of the attention.
Mario.
Yep.
The track map. We're talking a lot about this track. Does it look scary? Does it look anything? I know it's going back and forth. I think it's going to be
all these tracks. All these tracks look scary to me because I'm used to racing in the wood, and these jumps are just. We were on a moto track this weekend, and I'm out there rolling stuff. No, looking at it though, I don't know. Something we've seen a lot this season is how the track's changing throughout the weekend. Obviously, you see that every season, but it's been amazing for me to watch Cooper Webb and some of the lines he's been taking later in the races. That when you're watching it, you're like, that's slow. But it's not. He's making up time on guys, and he's making passes when he's going low in these corners. And looking at this, and we all know how he is in the whoops. But I don't know. It's going to be interesting for me with all these U-turns that we've got in here. He's going to have some opportunities to pass. He's going to need to get a good start though. But I don't know. It's an interesting layout. And in fact, dude, like I had to scan through like 3 or 4 pictures to kind of understand it, because you see where the start line's coming off, and I'm like, where are they going across there? And then I saw you had the, what do you call it, the tunnel or the bridge or over under on it. That looks a little sketchy to me, but it's kind of unique. The other thing, have they raced this exact stadium before? Because I'm just trying to remember this layout, because it looks like it almost goes back, not really into the stands, but kind of into the stands a little bit there too. So
it does. They've raced it a few times, and it cuts out a little bit there where they kind of go a little bit longer, which that's why they have that super long whoop section right out of the turn, which I really like.
Yeah,
I do like in that section beforehand. I feel you could go double, triple on, off, or you could just go wide and quad, triple. I want to see somebody do some scary shit like that. Guys in the chat are saying that Justin Cooper is just going to be kind of the bridesmaid to Eli. He's going to help him get the job done and potentially just get in the way for other people. Do you say that maybe there's team orders there from Yamaha to say, hey, try to do some blocking for your buddy?
Absolutely. You're on a blue bike. You better ride a fat blue bike. It's all about the win. So, and let's face it, Yamaha threw Justin a huge bone. they must have a lot of faith in him when we go outdoors, because when was the last time you saw the opportunity that Justin was allotted this year? It's never been seen before in the sport ever.
Mm-hmm.
And that over under tunnel, by the way, Johnny, you did your track walk, and I actually had to rewind it. Well, especially think about this, coming out of the first turn, drag race into that tunnel jump.
Yeah, it looks scary. It's like having a triple right after the start.
And then the idea that you've got to go all the way down through those whoops, like you said, and then if you shut off a half a second faster and you slam that front end down, and then you got to try to turn right and go up and over it, you're going to see flat bikes like Tomac did at round one going over that thing. I don't know. I understand it. I can't imagine how difficult it is to make a track, but I'm looking at that. Like I said, I had to watch your video twice. I backed it up. I'm like, they're going to come out of a first turn and drag race into a tunnel jump. And then right after, it's a right-hand turn.
Yeah, it'll work in a video game. We'll see how it works in practice. Well, guys, I know we've gone about Cooksey, you got something to say? I won't interrupt you.
The tunnel jumps. Think about how many times on a tunnel jump we've seen a dude drift 3 feet over and take out someone's front end. Having that right off the start is frightening. It's terrifying to me. I don't know how they're going to handle that, but I just hope that there's not any it's not intentional cross jumping, but it's one of those jumps where some dudes float it, some dudes land, and it's just easy to cross.
And what I don't understand is immediately goes into a right-hand turn. It's one thing when it's trying to slow down a straightaway, but you're ripping down a straightaway, hit that, and then like you say, trying to set yourself up for the next section. Oh, to me, that looks.
The problem is it's creating a pinch point. And at the end of a section there, these guys are wanting to lay the bike over and scrub speed because it's at the end of a straightaway. But with the start, you're going to have 22 riders that go into this pinch point that want to scrub to the inside. So how many rear wheels are potentially going to hit other riders? I don't know. And the thing about physics is when bikes are in the air, they don't function well when they touch. When they touch, then they just do this and it becomes incredibly terrifying. So I don't know. I don't know about that section. And
Johnny, what could go wrong? What happened? What was the worst thing that happened when Faulkner got hit by Jet in the air? What went wrong, Johnny?
A lot.
Johnny?
It was cross jumping is what went wrong, but
yeah,
I think you're being sarcastic, but your humor is so different than mine that I kind of feel as if I'm in trouble here for a second.
No. You're exactly right. What's the worst thing that can happen?
A lot.
You just have Faulkner that taps a rear wheel. He yard darts himself. His season's over. We're only at round 4. This jump may be the one that takes out 27% of our field in just one night. It doesn't make any sense when you're putting two guys, like you say, law of physics, angles, racing. This one makes no sense to me. Sorry, guys. I'm not a track designer, but this one does not add up.
Listen, I will give the Dirtworks guys crew. They're really good at recognizing some of this stuff and coming up with an option. So we may be jumping to a conclusion that's not there.
No, I agree. It's just like the whoops. You can look at them on that trap map and they can look super big and intimidating. And then
they could be tiny.
They could be completely tiny. They could end up being triple, or whatever it ends up being. But, just because you get a blueprint Dirtworks has done a phenomenal job of turning soupy water into a racetrack the last couple of weeks. We got to tip our hat to them, but this one's going to be very interesting. I'm almost envisioning they're going to put hay bales out there to tell them where to not go so they don't run into each other. That's how bad I see this getting.
Well, hopefully it's not. All we're just talking about worst case scenario, what could happen. And I'm sure if we're pointing it out, they know about it. And we all know that safety is the number one priority, but it just seems almost not a good setup for success is just my logic to it. But I know, guys, we've gone for an hour and 20 minutes. I do have to say that this was an awesome show. Make sure that you're WFOing that like button and subscribe to all these mofos because they post content constantly. They help grow the sport. And I will let each and every one of them say their piece. But hey, thank you everybody for enjoying the shit show. Make sure you come back next Friday, noon Pacific time. Mario, you're a guest of honor. Where can we find you?
Oh, cool. I mean, you can find the podcast, Two Wheeled Rider Podcast, anywhere you listen to podcast. We got the YouTube channel, Two Wheeled Rider. I do a lot of traveling around the world. Johnny, I just want to say thanks for having me on. Cooksey, watch plenty of your stuff. Coach, watch plenty of your stuff. And for those of you some behind the scenes, I literally started talking to these guys about 5 minutes before we went on air. So, it was great to meet you guys and happy to be a part of today.
Great to have you, man.
Hell yeah. Cooksey, where can we find you?
All day, every day with Cooksey. That's my non-motocross channel where I like to talk about real crap. I need to get to 1,000 to get monetized on that one. I think I'm like 200 or 300, something like that. If you can find me over there and like that one, I would really appreciate it. I can see not as many people hate me as I thought because I said hit the thumbs up if you dislike me, and it didn't go up. So I don't know what happened there. Where my haters at? Come on. But no, I love this. It's really fun to do this. Johnny's like my brother. Coach, I love you. Mario, I had a great time chatting with you.
And Cooksey, you have 201, 203. I'll make sure that my crypto channel follows you too. Coach, where can
I want to answer a question real quick. Beastie in the chat room said, why is it that Jet can get up and walk away from his big wrecks? Strength and flexibility. Learn how to tuck and roll. Learn how to predict where you're going, and you'll turn out just fine. No, thanks for having me again, Mario. It's nice to meet you. It's great to have you on the show. I'd love to have you back. Anybody that's interested in fitness, injury prevention from 65 to vet rider, you can reach us at CompleteRacingSolutions.com. And here on YouTube, please check us out, Coach Robb Beams with 2 B's. That YouTube channel is designed for you guys, just a plethora of playlists on anything from injuries to sports psychology, nutrition, strength training, swimming, cycling, running, the whole 9 yards. So it's always a joy to be on with you legends. And Johnny, thank you so much for spearheading yet another great show.
Mario,
Can I talk one more
you know what time it is? Can
Adam,
you prop?
Adam,
You know how to prop?
Hold on. Before we prop, Yeah. Adam he called me the worst opinions on you, or what did he say here? Find him at Cooksey, the worst opinions on YouTube channel. I'm sorry. That one's a good one. I like it. So,
Hey, we all love you. We all love you.
I like it. That's funny. Way to go,
all
Adam.
Fair, love, and war, right?
Yes.
So,
yes.
I say much worse things to you in private. I mean, shit. Okay, bro.
Missed it. Ding, 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 ding.